Well, a very, very good evening and afternoon to you from whichever part of the world and the country you're tuned into our Farmers Media. This is the Evening Farm Drive with me, Jackie Moore. Thank you so much for your continued support, for your comments, and for always following us and giving us the reactions that you do. We really do appreciate them. Yesterday and today morning it rained in Kitengela. Finally, I need to get the farmers here around Kitengela and Kajiado County just to get their reactions on what they're feeling about this rainy season. I've been seeing some of them posting on social media, showing us the pictures of the sun, the moon, and they've been saying the rain is coming. So probably the rain is here. And as much even if it's very little or minimal, at least it has rained, and that's a good sign. Being one of the counties that has been afflicted by drought. So there's a lot that we have lined up in today's edition. We want to talk matters organic versus inorganic farming. Which one is the most effective? We want to get your comments, your reactions. Myself, I'm against either. I just prefer rain-fed agriculture. I don't want to go back to that discussion that we had some time back. But we will be having some experts to discuss this whole issue about organic versus inorganic farming. As you know, we are still celebrating the World Soil Day, and so much activities, many activities have been taking place. Tomorrow we'll be having the kids. Yay! We want to hear the voice of the kids because they are the future generation. What do they know about our soils? What is the current state of our soils? And we'll be having those youth to tell us what is their take and what they think about our soils, what needs to be done. And we'll also ask them whether they are for organic or inorganic farming. And right about now, I'm joined by Kristen Mutindi.
Yes.
Ni Mutindi ama ni Mutinda?
Zote mbili.
What's the other?
Ndinondo.
Yes, sijawahi sikia, mimi nasikianga tu Nesa ama
No, now is when you're greeted by an older person. So it's wacha.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh. Karibu niseme kitu kingine hapo.
Usijaribu. Nitachomoka kwa hizi video.
Wewe kuisha mimi.
Takuacha.
Yes. So we want to talk about organic versus inorganic farming. I know your co-host Robert Makio is for organic farming. Or is he for? He's for organic farming.
Organic. He's for organic.
With aquaponics, they don't usually put those chemicals and those things.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into this discussion, get the experts' view and what they think, and before they even try to convince me whether organic or inorganic is good, what's your take on organic and inorganic farming?
I think organic is good. It's not really bad. But again, if you compare it to the other types of farming, I think I also prefer naturally rain food. It's good. It's just good. But again, if you compare, probably look at also conventional farming where you do large scale farming. That is where my problem begins. But organic farming is not bad.
You started by just saying organic farming is good. What makes it good? In my understanding, a crop needs all the nutrients that it requires for it to be fully grown, healthy, and to grow to maturity. The components found in the organic matter and the components found in the inorganic matter should be the same.
And what makes you think it's a little bit different?
That's where I'm coming from. I'm not getting the difference because the same component that is in the inorganic is the same component that is in the organic that the plant requires for it to grow to maturity and for it to grow it to be a healthy crop.
Of course, it grows to be a healthy crop. Now, from what I understand is that organic farming mostly they use waste. They convert waste into now the good organisms that are needed for the soil. It's not that it's bad, it's just that they're trying to conserve the environment. They're trying to get everything to work in order. It's like the organic farmers are trying to rearrange the world to the way it was. They're trying to get back the...
Oh, really? Oh, really? I hear you. I
yes,
hear you.
yes, because...
Taking us to Homo habilis
y-
or Homo sapien.
no, Homo sapiens. Just that. Because if you look at it, for example, let me take this. If we throw plastics into the sea,
Yes.
and now it goes and it doesn't degrade that fast. So it's slow, and probably fish gets to consume that. So you eat the fish has the plastic. So you see now that we are already messing with the ecosystem. But you see, if we take the waste, that is food waste, and we convert that into good nutrients for the soil, we're trying to revert back. We're trying to regenerate somehow. So that is good. And I think that is very good. Though it takes some work as well, and patience. But it's good. I don't think it is bad.
According to
But
Kristen,
we're
organic
used
farming
to...
is good.
Yes.
And it is a way of regenerating our ecosystem.
Oh, yes.
Yes, but before we are having experts who will be coming to tell us the nitty-gritty that we don't know about
Of course,
organic farming
yes.
and inorganic farming, because at the end of the day, all these things are chemicals. You cannot convince me otherwise. And
What things are chemicals? What do you mean by
everything is
chemicals?
Everything
What
is
do you mean?
chemical. The inorganic one, it's a chemical that is known, right? Inorganic, it's still a chemical, because people have still been using this kind of organic farming, this vermicomposting, this vermiculture, in the wrong way, because they understand that, yes, like you mentioned, it's regenerative, but they don't know there's a certain amount of water that you need to mix with this vermicompost or vermiculture for it to be safe for use for our soils.
I hear you. But aren't you the same person, Jackie?
Misquote me. Misquote me.
Aren't you the same person? Was it yesterday?
Me?
Yes.
Where did you see me?
Yes.
It was not me.
Wait, hold on. Aren't you the same person who was telling me that people do not read the components in the pesticide, and they don't read it, and they don't mix well? Even those who spray their plants that have been rained on, not even organic, some of them also do not read the comments. And you're the one who told me that.
That's the conversation we want to have.
Yes.
Yeah. On the evening farm drive with me, Jackie Mo. And before we get into this discussion, let's have a look at some of the stories that are making headlines. There's a story Christine has shared with me about people making ugali, the ugali flour from grass. Like, who does that?
Who does what?
Who mills grass to make flour?
If it's good, why
Have we
not
gotten
mill
to
it?
that state where we are eating grass?
But okay,
Like
what,
we are value adding grass.
what do you want us to
the
do?
cliche way. As now I've called someone for an interview. By the way, no pun intended. The company that has done that, no pun intended. But Sasa, you're coming yes, you're an entrepreneur. Yes, you're doing value addition. Welcome so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us about the value addition.
Yeah, and probably I tell you that if you eat later on in the day, you'll be chewing cud like a goat, because it's grass. I mean, so umekula ugali lakini utatafuna tena, so I don't know.
What kind of grass is that?
I haven't read the article really well, but I know it is from students of Kabarak University. And 1 kg of that flour is going to cost 35 Kenya shillings. Okay? So it's a bit cheaper. I do not know about the nutritional.
Really catch itself.
Shikana. Catch it.
Will it catch itself?
English is dead. English died.
Will it harden? Will it harden?
I have no idea. I have not yet looked at
Why
it.
flour though?
I was just reading through
something different, like even a spice,
What
or
spice?
a herb, but not flour.
From what I saw, it looks a little bit like uji, but then it's forming somehow. So I don't know. Maybe it will be like cassava flour. Even cassava flour is a bit soft.
That makes it even worse. Now,
But it is very
green
nutritious.
porridge.
It is not green. No.
No, all grass is green.
Yeah, but it's just going to bring the color to the ugali.
Can kindly research on this grass flower and share with us about it on
definitely. I will because
show.
I will
I'm
because
really interested. I want to see how it looks like. Even try and get those students from Kabarak and just ask them, like, how many crops do we have in the world? Why would you go to the extent of researching about grass?
I saw it and I was thinking, now here it will be a fight between cows and human beings for that grass.
Imagine. I've not even thought about that. I've not even thought there.
Yes, imagine now.
The pastoral community will be like,
yes, I know. So I was just thinking, why and how are you going to cook it? And what are you going to mix it with? So I just saw a snippet of it, but I will look at it more and I'll give you. I just know that it is going to cost 35 Kenya shillings. That is way cheap. And you know, a while back, maize was costing that much. So kinunua at 35 or 40 shillings and then unaenda unasiaga, that's another 5 shillings. That's 40 Kenya shillings. So it was that. But now it is up to 100 and something.
We've not gotten to that. Now moving on to another story is a story I've seen here that is quite interesting about Boschart, a senior in animal science from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin, has been awarded a prize for being a leader in animal science. He's been researching on animals, and we'll be having an interview with him later on in the week, just to find out. There's the other one we had with who won a laureate World Food Prize, and she studied the study of crops, where she draws crops on computers.
Really?
Yes. People.
Wait, drawing on computers, yes. And then what happens?
Like you're doing a study. You see the way you were talking about research. So how she does the research on the comps. So if she's probably looking at a crop like cowpeas, she draws it in the comp, and then she, like, from the roots, from down in the soil up to where the crop is fully grown. So like she has got to learn about the various microorganisms that are in the soil, what is required for the crop to grow, like just from the computer. Like she doesn't need to go to the field.
That is interesting, you know, the field.
And I've come up with quite some substantive research on the issue of intercropping, the safe use. Like they're against the use of pesticides and herbicides, like the organic ones. But, you know, organic in a good way. Yes.
Is that organic in a bad way?
Yes. When people spray their crops with, let's say, the rabbit urine. Rabbit urine has a lot of, I don't know if it is amino acids.
Yes.
So when you spray the crop without diluting the urine, it somehow burns the crop. And you can imagine if it burns the crop, the effect it has on the soil.
Yes, I do.
If it gets to fall on the soil. So you need to practice, the way I always say, follow the correct procedure, and you'll not harm the environment, and you'll end up eating good quality, healthy food. Yes.
But if you ask me, from where I sit or stand, organic farming versus other method of farming or inorganic farming, I feel that even from the chemicals that are being used on both sides, some of them, all of them have effect. But if you look at the organic, it might be a little bit less, because remember, they are reusing some of these things. So they are also helping with waste management. I remember in the morning, I was telling Mwakio that we have a problem with waste management, especially in most of the counties in Nairobi. Look at Machakos County, look at Nairobi County. Problem with waste management. But if we try and separate this waste, we have the plastics, we have the ones that can be reused again, like potato peels, they can be used again. So you see now that has less effects as compared to, I just go to the agrovet, I buy chemical for spraying pesticide, I come, I mix, I spray. You see, I'm done. Then I throw the same plastic container that contained the pesticide. I throw it again. But you see, for organic, I am trying to recycle. If something is recyclable, I will recycle.
Yeah.
Okay, so for me, I think everything that happens, I weigh the pros and the cons. So you see, the one that has more advantages, then it's good for everyone else. But the one that has so many disadvantages, because I don't know if you remember, there was a time that the United Nations, they built a very large tap, a very large structure besides the sea using plastics. And all these plastics were derived from the sea. So you see how much dump we are dumping into the seas. And the seas, they clean themselves. So it just comes to the shore and the plastics are there. Clothes are there. These things are not, they cannot be recyclable because they're in the sea. But once we take them back, we can have plans for recycling these plastics.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We are still waiting for our guests to join in this conversation. But one quick question I need to ask Christine is, there's a story I've seen of farmers are educating kids about agriculture to understand the food systems. Right now we are in the holiday season. What is the importance of having children participate in agricultural ventures, and why do farmers need to educate their children on safe agricultural practices?
It's laying foundation. Okay, and if you allow me, why are you laughing? I haven't yet spoken.
I know you are usually passionate about going back to the village.
Oh yes, yes, I do. I am. If you allow me, I'll just even quote the Bible. It says, "Teach your child, show your child the right way, and even if they are grown, they will not depart from it." And this is just it. Teach your child right now. Plant a tree. This is what you do with sukuma wiki. This is how you tender for, you just share the sukuma wiki. Ile imekuwa brown, you can't give it to the sungura or the goat. So you're teaching that child. For a building to be strong, if you're building flats, inafika fourth floor, hawezi eka foundation weak. It has to be strong. So that is what we are doing. We are teaching the future generation, because who knows tomorrow? As I always say, you don't know about yesterday, you don't know about today, and you also don't know about tomorrow. So you need to be prepared every other day. So it is laying foundation, and I think this is the best thing that people can teach children. It is the best.
And I actually think it's important for children to be involved in agriculture, because there's a time a colleague and I had visited a farm, was filming a show on horticulture farming. And my colleague had been brought up in the suburbs. So she was like, I was just, first of all, I was doing a recce of the farm to understand what the farmer does. And then she saw the sukuma wiki plantation. And she was like, "Jackie, is this cabbage?" Then the farmer looked at her like, "Are you serious?" And by then she was very serious.
You see.
She was asking, ati hii ni skuma? Hii ni cabbage na ni skuma. So you can imagine the generation that we are having now have no idea of even the crops that are grown. They only know when the food is on the table.
Exactly. And as even for us as grown-ups, you find that probably you went to school with someone and they went back to the village and they're doing farming. So people will look at that person like, "Aiwe alishindwa na maisha, akachapa akaenda kulima." You know, like, and you look at them and wonder, okay, farming is also good.
Yes.
Farming is actually very, very good. It's not that it is the last option. Huyu mtu alikosa kitu ya kufanya. So once you teach a child that, it shows that this is also a form of, you can have value addition for the sukuma wiki and make money. So you will think outside the box. See ati utaenda shule usome hii ufanye hii. There's also something you can do. Even with that education, you can incorporate everything.
Yeah, interesting. That's why we have, in tomorrow's shows, we'll be focusing on our children, our kids, just to get to understand what they know about our soils. As you know, this week we're marking the World Soil Day, and there have been a lot of activities. One of the activities actually was on revolving around children. They were given a task to take pictures of them playing around with soil, and the best picture of the kid who won was being given a prize.
Playing how?
Just do anything with soil.
Oh, they should do that for you, for adults. I didn't say that.
Yes, we're still waiting for our guest to join. There's an interview I had with Danielle Nierenberg, the CEO of Food Tank, on her thoughts about the World Soil Day. So we'll be getting into that interview as we try to link it with our guests so that we get this conversation rolling to know and understand what is organic farming and inorganic farming, which one is the most effective amongst the two. What are you for? Are you for organic or inorganic? Get to comment on our comment section at a Farmers Media. We are also on our website at a Farmers with a Z at the end. And you can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok and LinkedIn. We'll be listening into that interview by Danielle Nierenberg, the CEO and founder of Food Tank, one of the organizations that is dealing with the food reservoirs. We get to know where our states are at and the state of food security around the globe. Do keep watching Farmers Media. We'll be back after this interview.
So I'm joining you from Baltimore, Maryland. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Happy World Soil Day to everyone.
Recording in progress.
Yes, so probably you can start by telling us a little bit about Food Tank, what you do, and today you're marking the World Soil Day. How did you celebrate it in Maryland?
It's still early, so I'll celebrate it later. We have a lot of compost to get on our garden beds before it gets really cold. But yeah, I mean, Food Tank is a research and advocacy organization, and our mission is to really highlight stories of hope and success in food and agriculture systems around the globe, and activate, inspire, and motivate policymakers, businesses, farmers, and others to make change in our global food systems.
Interesting. Now, what is the importance of marking such a day? Because just as you've mentioned, you're getting ready to get some of the humus into the soil. What is the importance of marking such a day, and how should people celebrate World Soil Day? You can imagine, like World Food Day, people ate a lot of food. So how do you celebrate the World Soil Day?
I mean, I think, you say it so well in the title of this interview. Soil is where everything begins, right? And I think we have neglected our soils, at least over the last 70 plus years, by degrading them with artificial fertilizers and not investing in soil health. And I think we're seeing the impacts of that now. So it's really important to mark this day and remember that soil is where the majority of our food comes from, about 95%. And that if we're not protecting our soils, at least 30% of our soils are degraded right now, then we're doing that at our own peril. We really need to invest in soils in the same way we invest in so many other things in our agriculture and food systems. We need to make sure that the people, farmers, who are responsible for stewarding our soils get the compensation and the respect and honor that they need as well. So it's really interlinked with all of the other things that are going on in the world, whether it's the climate crisis or our health crisis. Degraded soils don't produce nutritious food, and so we need to protect our soil nutrients if we want to protect our own health.
Interesting. Just as you've mentioned, today we had another webinar earlier today, and we were talking about the importance of soil health, and one of the speakers mentioned that farmers are one of the greatest people who are destroying our soils from the chemicals that they use, even the seeds. And right now we are having the issue of climate. You as a Food Tank, what are you advocating for farmers to practice so that we can actually help mitigate the adverse effects of climate change and also save our soil and environment?
It's unfortunate that farmers are often blamed or villainized for destroying our soils or destroying other parts of the environment. They are often locked into a system where they are forced in many ways to use artificial fertilizers. I think, there's nothing wrong with fertilizers if they are used like they were intended to be, as medicine, if you will, to get farmers over a hump, to return fertility back to the soil. And then after that, use more natural ways, whether it's compost or animal manure or cover cropping, to make sure that soils are nourished. But I think we've overused and misused fertilizers, and farmers have been encouraged to do that with things like subsidies in places like Malawi and elsewhere. If we invested in more, sustainable practices, more regenerative practices to increase soil health, then we'd be doing ourselves a big favor and helping sequester carbon in soils. Soils have this huge opportunity to be a carbon sink, and yet we're sort of underutilizing them right now. And I think if we, again, can compensate farmers for sequestering carbon in soils, for, doing things like planting trees along with crops, using those agroforestry or silvopastoral systems, that would really help make sure that we're solving the climate crisis in a way that also benefits farmers.
Interesting. Looking at the current state, where would you say countries are at with regards to saving food? Because we have the issue of the war in Ukraine, there is the issue of prolonged drought, especially here where we are at in East Africa.
Sure.
Where are we at with regards to our food systems, and what should farmers do to increase our food security? And also talk about the need to check on soil testing and check on our soil health, so as to increase food in our baskets.
I mean, we're definitely in a very precarious time for our food system. We've, experienced almost 3 years of a pandemic that put a strain on global food production and supply chains all over the world. In places like parts of Africa, you have Ebola arising again, so that's preventing transport of seeds and other things that will help farmers. And of course, you have the Russian aggression against Ukraine with the war there, and that's a majority of where fertilizers are produced, that region. And so it's really putting farmers all over the world in a bind, right? And so I think instead of making a transition to more sustainable practices over the long term, right now we're going to, farmers are going to be forced into making sure that they're using more sustainable practices, because fertilizer prices will be too high, seed prices will be very high, and of course food prices for eaters and everyone will be very high. Ironically, farmers are the hungriest people in the world, even though they produce all of our food. So we need to find ways to help farmers improve soil health in different ways. And again, that's not just relying on artificial fertilizers. That's doing, a variety of things, including growing a diversity of crops. Farmers who grow monoculture crops are less resilient to the climate crisis, of course, but again, less resilient to global shocks like the war in Ukraine. So we need to find ways to invest in farmers. You mentioned soil testing, helping them figure out what exactly the nutrients are in their soils and their particular plots, because soil fertility can really range from plot to plot and from farm to farm and from country to country. So helping farmers get the tools that are necessary for them to make, better decisions around what their particular piece of land needs and what kinds of crops should be grown there.
There's a discussion I was having with Noah earlier today about the soils, and I was asking him which is the best soil to practice farming, and he was like, any soil can do well. Do you agree with that?
I do believe that if you treat it right, it will do well. And I think that's just really what matters. And Noah's one of the best farmers in the world, so he knows better than anyone.
Interesting. You got me there. I thought you were going to say no. What are the common threats that affect our soils?
I mean, again, it's things like industrial agriculture practices that don't take soil health into account. It's overuse of monoculture crops and not letting soils rest or repair themselves. It's, the climate crisis, which is causing drought over many areas of the world, including where you're at in East Africa, as you mentioned. So it's really this sort of cacophony of different things that are affecting soils and making it harder for them to, for soils to repair, to renourish, to restore their nutrients. And so that means it's up to us, as whether you're a policymaker or a farmer or an eater, to really, make sure that you are advocating for soil health. I think when we talk about agriculture and, we get consumed by the climate crisis, that we forget that soil health is really the root of all of this.
Mm-hmm. Kenya recently passed a ban on GMOs. What is your take on GMOs? Because there have been so much information that has been going around where people are talking about GMOs cannot be planted with the same types of other crops. There is the issue of GMOs destroying our environment and also the soils. What's your take on GMOs? And do you think Kenya is headed the right way when it comes to food security?
It's such an interesting question. I think the issue of GMOs, and it takes up all the oxygen in the room. People are either, a 1 or a 10. Nobody's in the middle about GMOs, right? And from my perspective, as somebody who has studied agriculture now for a long time, I feel like GMOs have not lived up to their promises. They were supposed to reduce agrochemical use. In fact, they have helped increase it, things like glyphosate. We're supposed to protect our environment and increase yields. They haven't done that. In fact, GMO yields are often less than conventional crops or organic crops. And they haven't made farmers money, which I think is an important part of this discussion. Farmers are locked now in a cycle where they have to buy GMO seeds and then the inputs that go, specifically for those seeds and those crops. And you don't want farmers to get locked into a sort of a vicious cycle that they can't get out of. So if GMOs had lived up to their promises, I'd be a bigger fan. But so far, I haven't seen them live up to their promises. And I think, Kenya is making a decision that, has been criticized widely. But I also think, it will help increase the ability of farmers to make their own decisions, right? Farmers should not be forced into using GMOs or not. But I think banning them for now is probably a decision that works for the country.
Interesting. Well said there, Danielle. With the current state of affairs and the chemicals that are being used, where would you say our soils how would our soils be looking at like in the coming 10 years? And what message do you have to the world and probably the people in East Africa when it comes to soil health and taking care of our soils?
Listen, there's a lot of urgency right now. I just got back from the climate COP in Egypt. The biodiversity COP is coming up in Montreal. It's clear that if we don't invest in soil health, again, we are doing so at our own peril. We need to invest in soil so that we can solve these multiple crises that we're facing. Because if we invest in soils, and that means, having governments invest in them, that means having farmers, making sure that farmers have the tools that they need to really ensure that soil health is protected. These are things that need to happen not by 2050, but by 2023. And I think that's where I really encourage governments and businesses and farmers themselves to invest in soil health now before it's too late.
You mentioned that there's a variety of activities that you're planning as you attend or mark this World Soil Day. Probably share some insights on what your food tank will be doing as a way of marking Soil Day, and also your message to every farmer out there on what they need to do to ensure that our soils remain healthy as we conclude today's interview.
I mean, our message is, and what we'll be sharing on social media, is that soil is at the root of everything. If we don't invest in soils, we're really sort of shooting ourselves in the foot. We need more investment. And so my advice to farmers, who know how to do this better than anyone, is to find ways to increase their soil nutrients. Whether that's through, again, manure from livestock, growing a variety of crops, composting. These are all ways that farmers, whether they're large or small, can improve soil health. And I think, there's this sort of misconception that big farms can't improve soil health in ways that are sustainable for the environment and for the economy, but they can. And so small and large farmers alike need to know that they have a role to play in this.
Thank you so much, Danielle, for making time to join us in today's edition as we mark the World Soil Day, and we are really looking forward to having more sessions with you with matters food and food systems. Probably fill us in on what kinds of meal you eat at Maryland, as we eat ugali.
Thank you so much. I mean, our message is, and what we'll be sharing on social media, is that soil is at the root of everything. If we don't invest in soils,
Okay, so that was Danielle Nierenberg, the CEO of Food Tank, and we were talking about soil health and the importance of farmers and the world at large, the importance of all the people taking part or taking care of our environment. Many people don't even know where exactly this day came from, and I was reading the way this the World Soil Day was came about, and yes, it was formed in 2013, but the UN General Assembly and the Soil Day was passed. Its inception was at the UN General Assembly. The day is usually marked in commemoration of the birthday of the late His Majesty King Babimbol Adulai Day. He is the king of Thailand and one of the leading proponents of this initiative. With that brief history of Soil Day, let's each year, FAO encourages youth and adults around the world to participate in a challenge to care for the soil. A recent challenge involved signing a pledge card, planting a seed, taking a photo, and sharing it on social media. I don't know how you guys marked the World Soil Day. Here at Farmers, we took the photo challenge, and we'll be sharing it in our social platforms later on in the day and also during the week as we continue marking the World Soil Day. The soil is very important to any kind of living being because everything begins from the soil, just as the theme of this year's Soil Day talks about. Food begins from the soil. So, like, you cannot do anything without soil. So, there's an urgent need for everyone to take part and participate in checking our soil health. So this has been the special edition of the Evening Farm Drive. Do keep watching our Farmers Media for more shows on this special edition of soil health, knowing your soil. And yes, keep the conversation going on all our social media handles at Farmers Media, on our website at Farmers. We're also on Twitter and Instagram.
Land preparation is a very important practice in the farm that ensures good yields from the crops to be grown. It helps against pest attacks and also helps in control of crop diseases in the farm. Its main purpose is to provide the best soil condition which will ensure successful establishments of plants. The steps involves finding the best garden, testing the soil, digging the farm, raising the soil to prepare the seedbed, softening the soil through harrowing of the land to a fine tilth, making the seedbed level, then finally making the drills for planting. The land will be ready for planting.
A nursery bed is a small area of a yard or garden that's used for growing certain selected plants. The goal of a nursery bed is to grow young plants to a certain size at which they can be easily transplanted. A nursery bed can also be used to evaluate plants to see if they are worthy of planting in the larger garden, to observe their growth, habit, and color, or watch them for pests and diseases. A nursery bed is especially helpful for vegetable gardeners practicing succession in planting, in which a steady supply of fresh produce is maintained.
we're joined by one of our agronomists who is Christopher. Christopher, thank you so much for making time to be with us in today's edition.
Thank you, Jackie.
How is the weather wherever you are? It rained in Kitengela finally after so many days of waiting for rain. How is the weather like, and how are you marking the World Soil Day?
We have not seen some rain so far.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, just try to catch up on a few items. Mm-hmm. Among them is researching and preparing for next year.
The planting season, or?
Next year has to be different because, as you will recall, farmers have had a tough time this year because of the drought.
Yeah.
So we need to revisit how we did things this year and try to recoup what we can.
Yeah, I'm trying to find if our other expert has joined, who is an expert on organic farming. He's called Oliver. Oliver will be joining us in a few. But we want to have this discussion about organic versus inorganic farming. Which one is effective? Kavundi, you're one of the renowned agronomists, and you've been in this industry for quite some time. Which form of farming would you advocate for, organic or inorganic?
I would advocate for an hybrid farming.
Which one is that one now? Hybrid is which one?
In fact, there's a term they use when they want to convert to organic, they call it confessional.
Okay.
Yes, because organic farming, for us in organic farming, they all more or less talk of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever you are growing is organic.
Mm-hmm.
Organic as carbon.
Mm-hmm.
The term has also been used for marketing purposes. Mm-hmm. And we cannot also ignore the issue of climate change.
Yes.
So to say that you are not going to use certain chemicals, pesticides, is a statement that requires a lot of investment. Mm-hmm. And as I've always said in previous shows, that I normally give honest opinions.
Yes.
Organic, to be able to produce organically would mean that you will take years of investment. Mm-hmm. It's not something you wake up and you say that I am now organic. Yeah. Especially for horticultural crops. Not unless you are doing just one vegetable for your home garden. Mm. But on a commercial scale, to me, is something that is a very tall order. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Interesting. So in short, you're trying to say, as much, before I even get to that question, is organic farming healthy? Like most people believe that when they consume organic foods, they are eating healthy meals as compared to the conventional way.
To me, any activity that is considered healthy has potential of being poisonous.
You're always controversial, Kabundi. Yeah?
No, I'm not. Uh-huh. Because if you eat excess of organic foods, yeah, excess of any food, mm-hmm, you'll suffer health problems.
Really?
Of course, there is the issue of bloating. There is the issue of all this, mm-hmm, constipation. Mm-hmm. But even if you grow with the ones that are banned in organic, yeah, use the fertilizer that they don't recommend in organic farming, mm-hmm, in the right way. Mm-hmm. The issue is the right way of safe use of these chemicals and pesticides. Yeah. And food safety focuses on basically that.
Yeah, very interesting. But what would you say is the difference between organic and inorganic? Because I'm assuming for any particular crop, they require this particular nutrient that they get either organically or inorganically. What makes that difference between organic and inorganic?
The only difference is the chemicals they use, mm-hmm, the seeds they use, and how they have been produced. Mm. Yeah, because organic, to me, I've had a chance to operate and under both, and also being involved in certifications of both. It's just the chemicals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does seed really matter when it comes to organic farming? Like, do all seeds work well with organic?
They do.
All of them?
Yes, but the process of developing the seed, I mean, of multiplying the seed is what matters. Because if you are targeting to go organic, you need a seed which has not come in contact with any chemicals, any fertilizers that are not required. Yes.
So apart from the health factor of the food being healthy from organic farming, what other benefits do farmers tend to get, the ones who are practicing organic farming?
For those who have gone through the whole process, the only benefits I have seen farmers get is getting bonuses from the market. But also the environment, because organic farming has an aspect of soil conservation and environment protection. Inorganic farmers tend to just go for the profit. Yeah, but that narrative is slowly changing as farmers adapt to the KS standard that the ministry is pushing for. Yeah.
Interesting. So, having done both organic and inorganic farming, which one would you say is the preferred kind of farming that smallholder farmers should probably venture into?
I would not tell a smallholder farmer to go to organic farming.
Why?
Unless he has some financial backing somewhere, some money somewhere to boost him. It's very expensive.
Really?
Yes.
I thought you just get the red worms from the humus and then you just start composting and you get your organic.
How do you grow the red worms if you are buying a liter at 178 of petrol? How will you irrigate the material that the worms will be eating? Will you irrigate the worms or will you irrigate your cabbages? Those are the factors to consider. Just some basic details on how the organic farming is done, the cost involved. Because people tend to look at the end products.
Yes.
But to have the product ready, causing up.
Interesting. And when it comes to the issue of safe use of pesticides, would you say organic farming is environmental friendly, or are there some misinformation that is entailed there whereby farmers are fully not aware of how they need to spray their crops when it comes to organic? Because at the end of the day, there are still some chemicals contained in the organic, like the vermiculture and the vermicompost that needs to be diluted. Well, which information or misinformation do farmers have that you can share with them when it comes to safe use of pesticides and herbicides?
Safe use of chemicals has to be adapted across board. Either you are doing organic or inorganic. Because even your own home solutions, if you don't use them safely, they will affect your crops. They will scorch them, they will desiccate them, they will disrupt their transpiration and their growth. So safe use is very key, and there are a lot of institutions that advocate for safe use. One of them is PCPB. They do that through the labeling, require that labels indicate safe use and how to handle the pesticides. We have SOCA, an association of agriculture professionals that advocates for safe use. So it cannot be ignored. You cannot say that I'm doing organic, so I don't need safe use. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. But as much as compared, you mentioned the fact about the issue of organic farming being costly, but compared to conventional farming, how expensive is it if you're comparing organic versus conventional farming?
Organic is expensive than conventional.
Really?
Because, because in conventional farming, If something goes wrong, you spray maybe a chemical and it burns your crop, you can instantly uh, uh, make amends. But organic, if something goes wrong, you will have to take longer because maybe sometimes you start the whole process again.
Mm.
Yeah.
So that's why the organic foods are usually expensive.
Yeah, because to grow them, as I've told you, is quite a task.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you look at the nutritional value of either crops, either the ones that have been grown organic or the ones that have been grown inorganically, which ones contain more nutrients? Because I'm imagining from the explanation you've given, the organics have more nutrients. Or
No.
am I wrong?
A maize comb is a maize comb. Either grown organically or conventionally.
Uh-huh.
The potassium in a roasted maize, if, for example, if you go to these guys who roast maize,
Mm.
will you be able to say that this maize is organic, this is not organic?
Probably
Because
from
all
the
foods
taste.
end at the table.
Mhm.
And the cooking is the same. Those that are consumed raw are consumed raw as per the nutrients. And the physiology of a crop, I mean, the nutritional aspects of a crop, it struggles with the nutrients it receives. And it keeps the nutrients that it is engineered to keep. So somebody telling me that conventional grown crop is less nutritious than organic one. Huyo tutakosana tu.
Nakudanganya.
Hiyo ni wrong.
Okay,
Yes.
interesting. Lastly, what are your thoughts about regenerative agriculture? Because we've been interviewing a lot of people on the state of our soil and what needs to be done in order to rejuvenate our soils, because most parts of our country, the soils are depleted.
From where I stand, the only way to generate our soils is to let them regenerate themselves for at least 5 years, 5 to 10 years.
5 years.
Yes. Unajana nayo eti inajirudisha nyuma tu, ni kama tu haijawilimwa.
Uh-huh.
Because so long as you're working on the soil, so long as you are disturbing the soil, you're exposing it to erosion, you're exposing it to heat, you cannot say that there is any regeneration taking place. So if it were possible, people can abandon just not the whole farm, but a section of the farm with time. It regenerates. Yani inajirudisha yenyewe.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yes. So your message to the public and our viewers who are watching us today, what would you tell them with matters protecting our soils and being our own advocates when it comes to issues surrounding soil pollution and degradation, land degradation? What message can you tell the farmers, being one of the senior agronomists we have following our page?
I would advise anyone listening to me now that first you need to study your soil. You need to incorporate soil scientists to do soil profiles, so that they can inform you the extent of damage to your soil. You cannot regenerate what you don't know the extent of damage. Just like you cannot be attended to a doctor before some tests are done on you. And sometimes people might get into regenerative farming whereby they are harming the soil more. But basic principles is you minimize soil disturbance, you minimize loss of topsoil, and if possible, ensure your farm or your soil is covered. It's not exposed to elements of weather. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Christopher, for making time to join us in today's edition. We'll be looking for you for more insights on matters to do with agriculture. Which crop are you looking at growing in the next season?
I'm going for sorghum.
Sorghum
Yes,
in Makweni.
yes.
Does it do well?
It used to do very well until people abandoned it for hybrid maize.
Hybrid maize. Really?
Sure.
How many acres?
Eh?
How many acres do you want to do of sorghum?
Hiyo ni siri.
Ai, asina amue. Have the mangoes grown?
The mangoes even the people have sold.
People are selling.
Yes.
How much per kg? Or
A
per
kg.
sack?
Siku hizi unajua ni kunegotiate.
Mmechanuka.
Sio wakati tulikuwa unapeana tu ovyo ovyo. Yeah.
But this year they have done well. I'm assuming the climate in Makweni is okay.
No, in fact, the drought has affected a lot, and most of the orchards, some people have lost their orchards. So,
Wow.
But tunapambana.
Ni vizuri. Wacha watu wapambane. Hiyo ndio maisha. That's how life is.
Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you so much, Christopher, for making time. We'll be looking up and looking for you for more insights on matters to do with agriculture. As you heard, he's planning to venture into sorghum farming. We're still trying to get a hold of other guests and experts. He's called Oliver Swani, who is an organic farmer. He's done various kinds of organic farming. He's done redworms, and he'll be joining us a little bit later during the show to share insights on organic farming. But as Christopher has just mentioned, organic farming is, well, it's good, but it's more expensive as compared to conventional farming. On matters to do with nutrition, Christopher says there is no difference between organic and inorganic farming, as people do not know. You cannot really tell whether a crop or a fruit has been grown organically or inorganically. As we try to get a hold of Oliver, let's take a look at some of the stories that we have. Before that, let's pay some bills. There's this campaign you're running by Markup on aflatoxins. How well do you store your crops? Because we know aflatoxins affects mostly maize, peanuts, macadamia nuts, and spices. And this campaign by Markup will be looking at aflatoxins on peanuts, chilies, and other kinds of spices. And we want to understand what really is the cause of aflatoxins. As you know, aflatoxins erupts from soils, and it continues evolving if a crop does not get stored and dried in the correct temperatures. And yes, so we want to understand this, and this coming week will be rolling out this campaign, interviewing farmers who are practicing groundnut farming and peanuts and macadamia nuts, as well as chilies. How do you store your chilies to avoid? I'm really interested on the chili one because I'm thinking probably chilies are the pepper. You know, the Nigerians say pepe soup. So how does aflatoxin affect the chilies and the different kinds of herbs and spices? What are the correct temperatures for storing some of these products? We'll be taking a quick breather as we look at this Markup campaign. Coming up shortly, we'll be talking to Oliver Swani on his thoughts on organic and inorganic farming, why he prefers organic farming, what kind of organic farming is he practicing, how viable is it, the nutritional content of the crops he's done and he's ventured into, and we'll get to understand more on the benefits, on the effectiveness of organic farming. Keep watching our Farmers Media. I'll be back shortly.
Jackie, it is not connecting. It is either up.
Agriculture is the art and science of cultivating the soil, growing crops, and raising livestock. Agriculture provides most of the world's food and fabrics. It is not only a source of food and income, but also 1 billion people worldwide work in agriculture, generating 2.4 trillion for the global economy. The global impact of farming on the environment is revealed that 40% of the Earth's land is now given over to agriculture. Agricultural development is one of the most powerful tools to end extreme poverty, boost shared prosperity, and feed a projected 9.7 billion people by 2050. And we, the Our Farmers Media, roll the carpet for you as we welcome you to our thrilling farm visits to different farmers that educate and inspire you in different sectors in agriculture. Catch us also on our shows on all our social media platforms as we bring you educative and informative information that will help you learn and guide you on your agriculture journey to success. Our farmers attain knowledge and grow profits.
Farmers is the home of Africa Farmers Club and by extension African Farmers. The whole idea behind Farmers is to transform the image of an African farmer from a producer into an agripreneur, somebody who actually does not think about how to produce onions but how much is going to be used to produce onions, and so that way then they can be able to transform their vision, they can be able to look at their farms as businesses, and they can be able to know when to engage with the market. What we have done is that we have developed a hub where farmers bring their information, bring their questions, their challenges, and other farmers are there to come out and help. Facebook has not just been instrumental, Facebook has been a working partner for myself as well. And Facebook has actually transformed the way we relate, an open platform. My background is in tech, and I know you cannot build a platform that can reach out to so many people. Initially, it was just a few farmers in 2 counties, Machakos County and Kajiado counties, but now it has transformed. We have a stronger membership from Nigeria and Zambia than even Kenya itself, And the reason behind this is the messages I get from different farmers across Africa. And then something interesting came to my mind, and I thought about using the camera. Every time I visited farmers, I would be able to post in the community, in the group, in my own profile, and just share the story of the farmer that I visited. And then I asked myself, why wouldn't I get this information, develop it in a way that other people can be able to benefit? If we go for a training, how do we capture that so that those who are not, the farmers who are not able to come for that training can still benefit? And hence the birth of farmers media. Our mission as an organization is to help farmers, African farmers, to attain knowledge and grow profits.
And welcome back to the evening farm drive with me, Jackie Moore. We are into the third section or sector or part of our evening farm drive show. And today we are talking about matters to do with organic versus inorganic farming. We've had a lot of insights starting from Christine and then Christopher. And now I'm joined by yet another guest, Oliver Aswani. Oliver, thank you so much for making time out of your busy schedule to join us in today's discussion. Tell us a bit about yourself and what you do for the benefits of our audience. Oliver, can you hear me? Oliver, hi. Can you hear me? Yes, we're trying to get a hold of Oliver. Probably some sound technicalities, but we'll be having this discussion once we get the sound. But as I mentioned earlier, we are discussing matters to do with organic versus inorganic farming. I don't know why most of the foods that are organically grown are usually expensive, because from the discussion I've had with Christopher is there's no difference, nutritional difference in crops that are either grown organically or inorganically. The nutritional content contained in all crops is the same. So I don't understand why the produce that comes from organic farmings are usually expensive. We are trying to get a hold of Oliver. I don't know if we have his sound so that we continue with this show. Director, do we have the sound? Yeah, so we are trying to get a hold of Oliver to fix the sound so that we can have this conversation. But as I mentioned earlier, the world marked the International World Soil Day on Monday, and there have been an array of activities ranging from the best photographs that have been taken this year during the World Soil Day from speakers, different speakers talking about the status of our soils. We'll be taking a short break. We'll be back with Aswani to have this conversation going. I don't know if Aswani, can you hear me? Oliver, hi, can you hear me? Right, we can't get to Oliver
Jackie, now
cannot
you can
hear
hear
us,
me.
so we will be trying to get a hold of Oliver to have this conversation on organic farming. What are your thoughts and comments? Keep posting on our social media handles at Farmers Media. We are also on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Keep that
Hi,
conversation
Jackie,
going.
can you
What
hear
is your
me?
take on organic versus inorganic farming? Which forms of this farming is viable? We'll be taking we are trying to get a hold of Aswani. Aswani, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yes, I'd asked you to introduce yourself for the benefit of our audience who don't know you. Who is Oliver? What kind of farming do you practice? And why did you choose that kind of farming?
My name is Oliver Swani, and my siblings and I farm in Western Kenya. Our farm is called Asili Organic Farm, and we do pretty much mixed farming. And part of what we do, we have earthworms that we rely on for organic fertilizer. We also have our dairy and our chicken that supplement that. But the conversation around organic is a little bit tricky because what the farm needs, I think, needs to be like a balance between synthetic and organic, because organic in its own right cannot supply a big farm. You require tons and tons of organic fertilizer, assuming you're using manure, to put on your farm. And this again will not necessarily maybe give you the right kind of nutrient requirements that you need. So what we have learned is that organic is applicable in small scale. So if you're doing like a kitchen garden, if you're doing like a nursery, you can probably rely on something organic. But if you're actually doing large scale commercial farming, it becomes very hard. And I'll give you an example that India has the most number of cows in the world. Uh, Somebody had tried to dial me, but where India is right now, they still have to depend on synthetic fertilizer because the cows that they have, even if they were to collect all that manure, would not suffice. But that aside, we have learned from our earthworm farms that we're able to collect vermi liquid, where when we have the earthworm beds and you run water through them, the water that seeps through, we're able to collect the liquid that has dissolved the very rich fertilizer. It's probably one of the best organic fertilizers that there is. So that we use as a liquid fertilizer. And this at least is easier to stretch. What we're trying to do also on our side is just now to check and see, can we then test to see what sort of nutrient quantities are available with this kind of organic fertilizers, because then it helps in informing you, knowing what exactly are you adding or what shortfall are you going to experience. Separately, we will also had a chance to work with the seaweed fertilizer. So the seaweed fertilizer, and probably if you're closer to Western Kenya, there's a plant with the yellow flower. It's called Tithonia. Again, that will also give you very rich nitrogenous fertilizer. And it works very well either as foliar or liquid fertilizer. So this one's able to stretch you a little bit further and cheaper than what manure would do. And one last one that a lot of us probably don't consider, and it's readily available to Kenya. So this one actually you can do it on a large scale. There is a rhizobia, what we studied in school as nitrogen fixing bacteria. This, the beauty of it is you apply it to the seed and you plant the nitrogen fixing bacteria, input a lot of nitrogen into your soil. So that is one of those few that you can actually do commercially in Kenya. We have brands like Biofix from fertilizer that will be able to get you that rhizobia. So these are the few options that are available to us. But in essence, by the time you get the required nutrients for organic fertilizer, it's a big challenge. Hence why you find even with the quantities required in your farm, getting it, spreading it, and doing all those things. That is why organic fertilizer or produce from organic fertilizer is twice or thrice the price of regular food grown with synthetic fertilizer.
Interesting. You've mentioned a couple of organic fertilizers that you've ventured into. I've heard of the seaweed fertilizer and the rhizobia. I'm very interested and eager to know about these ones. I've never heard or seen them. But before we get into these kinds of fertilizer, what are the effects of organic farming on our soils? Do they regenerate the soil? Because we've had issues of safe use of pesticides. Some farmers probably are misinformed on how they need to spray their crops on their farms and how they need to apply the fertilizers and herbicides on their farms. Probably, what are your thoughts on the effects of organic farming on our soils, and what, in your take, is the current status of our soil?
So current status of our soils are largely damaged. And this is also just not necessarily from use of organic fertilizer, but from use of the synthetic fertilizer. And the bigger problem is that we, over the years, have just been applying fertilizer without understanding what our soils need, what quantities do we need to add, how do we manage that. So, for example, if you go to the sugar belt, the maize belt in Western Kenya, the soils are very acidic because DAP has been pumped into those soils year in, year out. So you find places where people started liming. But the correct step in this regard would be people need to start with soil tests. So start with what does your soil have, what does your soil not have. Then correctly should be the fertilizer needs to address this deficit based on also what crop you're planting, such so that sometimes you don't necessarily have to push too much on one thing, but your plants will only absorb X and the rest will go to waste, will remain in the soil, and then that complicates the soil equation. So when we're saying organic, organic in its own right is good for the soil in that it is biodegradable. By and large, it doesn't mess up the chemical equation of the soil. But again, you also have to be able to understand that sometimes when you're applying organic, sometimes if it's not cured nicely, for example, if you're taking manure from your cows and your goats, it's not cured nicely, you can introduce a lot of new weeds into your shamba. So the process of also just making sure that your organic manure is ready for the soils is important. In terms of transmitting pathogens, not so sure how that would come across, but maybe again, be it plant pathogens, it is possible because sometimes, yes, the animals that are grazing, if you're going out there and grazing and going through A, B, C, D, they might be able to introduce some of those pathogens into your soil. So the process of making sure that your fertilizer has cured properly and stayed, you've turned it around, it has cured, it has heated. That is one step. With organic fertilizer, again, you probably also want to check the health of your soil. So soil health and soil nutrition are very different. Soil health is all about the number of nutrients and micronutrients existing in your soil. So the earthworms, all these things that burrow and aerate your soil and everything. So you can actually get a balance of both. Because a very good indicator, actually, the test they do at the end, a good indicator of healthy soil is if they tell you bury old jeans on the ground or your old underwear. After 6 months, you remove it and it has holes. It shows you the soils are alive, the soils are healthy. But if it comes out as it were, it shows you there's no life underneath. And this life that happens underneath is what also helps in making sure that your soils are active or productive and you can rely on them. So your second question was on this other fertilizers. The seaweed fertilizer, you can do the same, you can make the same kind of fertilizer with a plant called Tithonia. And then you are asked about the rhizobia. So the seaweed and the Tithonia, these are plants that are rich in microorganisms, the nutrients that the plants need. So what happens is that they're soaked in water over a period of time, that the water absorbs a lot of these nutrients. Then this solution is concentrated, whereby you just then add parts into